just had the most amazing family vacation.
This is so exciting!
Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining on this experiment here. This is Dave Radine. I'm glad that you've just taken a little bit of time out at the end of this year for us to talk about a little bit about these 9 questions that have been so impactful in my life that I just really want to share them with you. There's no string attached to it or anything, but I want to make sure that you're making the best use of this crazy last week of the year, of the craziest year probably any of us have ever had. So over about the next 45 minutes or so, I want to walk you through some questions and some things that I've been learning on my growth journey that may be helpful to you. If you can take some of it and use it, that's great. If there's other things that aren't helpful to you, just discard them and just kind of throw them by the wayside, and you're none worse for the wear. But I'm glad that you've taken a little bit of time just to check in here. And about 20 years ago, I really began what I would say was really like my real growth journey of intentional growth. And I really started pretty much on my own, just reading books, listening to cassette tapes. Yeah, 20 years ago, cassette tapes. I was listening to those things. I even had even for a while, I was a part of a weekly fax program, and they would fax leadership lessons, growth lessons that I would wait by the machine every week and wait for it to be there. So a lot has changed in the course of this time. Few people even I don't even know if they have fax machines anymore, let alone put them on your business cards, and people uh, don't use cassette tapes. I think cassette tapes are all like in historical museums these days, um, as a remember when kind of a display. But the way that the way that growth content has changed and has been delivered over the years has changed a lot. Um, and now today, I mean, we're listening to podcasts. We can get on the websites. There's digital downloads. There's all kinds of social media stuff and live streaming like we're doing right now. So the way that content gets delivered to us and the way that we access it has changed a lot over the last several years. But for me, the greatest change has not just been how I get content, but what I do with the content and how I process that content. That's really where the learning has taken place for me. That's really where the growth has taken place. It's not the delivery mechanisms will come and go. They'll change. Um, but here's the thing that has never changed. People still are hungry to grow, aren't they? They still have this desire inside of them to learn more, to do more, to experience more, to get to a higher level, to up level themselves or their family or their relationships or their team or their business. And they want to go to the next level. So that has never gone away. And people still will do whatever they can to get their hands on growth. And the other thing that has not changed in all these years is the simple truth that content alone has never changed anybody's life. It doesn't change it. Just by getting a hold of the content, it really doesn't make the difference. If it did, you would have to pay in order to use Google. But getting that content alone, you can get content all over the place. You can get the content probably that I'm going to share with you today. You can probably find it online any place. The content alone isn't the issue. If it was, you'd have to pay $1,000 for a library card, but they give them away because they know. Listen, access to the content is free, but it's really about what you do and how you process that content. And if you know my story at all, it's about 8 years ago, I really started getting intentional about my growth and investing in myself. And not just doing it on my own, not just getting a hold of content, but it was the way I processed that content. And I started being coached and mentored by people who have been where I wanted to go. And so I started surrounding myself more intentionally with those kinds of people and listening to them and learning from them and connecting with them and interacting with them and taking content and then contextualizing it into my situation. What does this mean to me? Not just learning it on my own. And one of my mentors is a guy by the name of Mark Cole, and Mark is the CEO of all of John Maxwell. If you're familiar with John Maxwell, all of his enterprises. And many of you know that I've been a part of the John Maxwell team since 2012, actually. And so Mark has been in that process, has been a mentor of mine. And I've learned a lot from him and listening to him and engaging with him. And he has helped to bring to life books that I had on my shelf, lessons that I had learned from other places, but I just didn't know how to contextualize. I didn't know how to connect it with the reality of my life. And a couple of years ago, Mark shared some key questions that have just impacted my life so much that I want to share them with you. And it was all about the idea of what do you think through? What questions can you ask when you're getting ready to start something new? And so here we are as we come to the end of 2020. Thank the good Lord in heaven for that. And as we get ready to round the corner into 2021, I just wanted to pass along some questions that, again, have been helpful to me. Maybe they'll be helpful to you. I hope they'll be helpful to you. And my hope is really just to add value to you. As you make preparations for the new year and for a new year of growth, both whether you want to use this personally or this is something that maybe is helpful to you professionally, I just want to challenge you to use this time, the next couple days, this next week, this last few days of the new year, and even the first few days, the last few days of this year, and the first few days of this next year, to make this an invaluable time in your life, in your family, in your business, in your organization, and really grab onto these things and process through some of these things. Now, I love the turn of a new year. It's energizing to me. Yeah, a lot of people at this time of the year, they start turning their attention to the health issues and questions like, all right, what am I going to do to get better? I want to eat better. I want to exercise more. I want to get out. I want to be active a little bit more. And that's a part of the things that I look at too. It's part of what I have used for the last several years. I call them my RPMs. I look at my life relationally, physically, mentally, spiritually, or toward significance. And I look at those areas. How can I get better in each one of those areas? And so beyond just looking at that one area of health, which was what most people do, they start going back to the gym or they get a gym membership or they commit that they want to have a New Year's resolution to lose weight or whatever. Beyond just getting healthier, which is good, but it only lasts a temporary thing. I want to challenge you to think about your legacy. I want to challenge you to think about what's going to outlive and outlast your particular lifespan. And this is something that, if it's done correctly with intentionality, it will expand beyond your lifespan. The questions that we're going to talk about, it's about getting intentional with the very life that you and I are leading. And so a big part of my intentional growth has been to learn how to ask good questions. Ask good questions not only of other people to learn, but even ask good questions of myself. Because questions, they provide that fuel for reflection. They become a catalyst for action. So at this time of the year, it gives us opportunity to ask good questions that really can be a catalyst for real change in our lives. And so this is a unique time of the year where we look back and then we also look forward. Now, for many of us, the pace of life that we lead, oftentimes what is the case is we don't really spend much time reflecting back. We spend a lot of time just, what's the next thing? What's the next big hill? What's the next big challenge? What's the new opportunity? What's the new door that's opening up? And we're always looking forward, and that's a good thing. But don't forget to look back for just a little bit too, to glance in your rear view mirror. And so what I want to do is I want to share with you 9 questions, and 4 of them are looking in the rear view mirror. One of the questions has to do with looking at right now. And then 4 of the questions are looking forward. So if you got a pen and paper or you want to jot down some of these notes, let me just share with you some questions that have been shared with me that have been instrumental in my growth. Very, very helpful, very clarifying, very catalytic in me going to the next level in a lot of areas of my life. So if you'll dive into these things, and I believe that they can be instrumental for you too in setting up the new growth that you want in 2021. Okay, so you ready? Here we go. Let's just jump right in. I'm going to try to flip this over so you can see them here and a little bit better. But here's the first one. The first question is this, and this is a question, again, the first 4 questions are looking backward. So the first question, looking backward, is what did I accomplish? In 2020, what did I accomplish? This last year, what did I do? Now I know a lot of people may feel like you didn't accomplish much of anything, that it was just like a year where you just hit pause and not a lot happened. And I understand that. And it may be easier to think of the things that you didn't accomplish, things that you wanted to do but didn't do or couldn't do because of that C word, COVID. And that's a fair question. That's a fair assessment. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But I don't want to let you off the hook that easily. Don't just say, I couldn't accomplish anything. I want you to look at the course of the last 12 months and what did you do in your life, personally or professionally? What worked? What did you do that worked right? Because there were some things, that there were. What are some things that were positive? Because those are the positive things that you want to build on going into the future. So I want you to take a second. I want you to think that through. Like, okay, it was kind of a sucky year in a lot of ways, but I did have some wins. I did have some positive steps. I did have some things that I accomplished. And I want you to take just a little bit of time just to reach around, just pat yourself on the back and to feel good about it. This last year, because of the pivot that we have been on, I learned some new skills. And this is one of them. Now we'll see how well this goes here, but just learning technology like this and learning some ways to live stream and get connected with people in other ways other than in-person, face-to-face. It's been a learning thing for me, and I've had some wins in that area, and I hope today will be another win in that category. I've up-leveled this last year my outreach to fellow leaders and fellow learners, people that also want to grow. They also want to take a next step in their life, and I've found new ways to connect with people in some intentional marketing and connecting and ways to build bridges with people that way. That's been a win for me. I have done some more deep dive clarity. This year has caused me to do some deep dive clarity in my role as a leader and how I'm influencing others and what's the best way for me to do that. what are the best platforms, and what's the best voice that I can bring forth to add value to other people, to share hope with people, to help other people to grow their influence. I, in the midst of that, I've been a part of launching a monthly webinar series, and some of you maybe have been a part of that. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that maybe later too. But that's been a good thing. That's been a win. And we've got a great new webinar that's coming up in just a couple weeks. And so just if you're interested in that on growth, just put that in the comments or shoot me an email, and I'll make sure that you get that information. But here's the point: give yourself a moment to celebrate. That's part of the value of looking back, is to say, man, that was a great win. That was a great accomplishment. That was something that I did well. It's not wrong to have pride in something that you did. Have that. You've got to have that feel. You got to know what it feels like to have that feeling of a win. So doing that enables you to build on those accomplishments rather than just kind of going over and over and reinventing the wheel all the time. Like, all right, you got a great win. Let's build on that for the next year. So give yourself a moment to bask in that win, and just to say, man, that was good. That was a good thing. And I'm glad for that. In those moments of greatness. I always love the quote Andy Stanley said, that we have to understand what it looks like when things are going right. Because if you don't know what things look like when they're going right, how are you going to know what to do when it comes time to fix it? So if you don't know what it's supposed to look like, if you don't know what a win looks like, then when things do go wrong, how do you know how to fix it? So that's part of the value of looking back. So that's the first question to ask: what did I accomplish? Okay. All right. Here's the second question. Second question is, what did I learn? It's kind of tied to that. Here's maybe what I learned in that process from the win or even from some of the losses. There is power in doing a review shortly after you did something. I learned years ago, whenever I host events or put on events, um, we would have a list of things that we would call like our next time list. And I would encourage people on my team just to walk around with a pen and a paper and just have a next time list. And as they notice things, they say, oh, that didn't quite work right, or that was actually a good thing, and we want to do more of that, to write them down. So that then afterwards, after the event, we would do a little debrief and say, what is it that went right? What is it that went wrong? What can we do better next time? I think that's a valuable tool to have. So to learn those things right after the event. But then there's also value in looking back 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later and say, all right, what did I learn now with longer distance in there? Many of you know that in July 2019, we had a house fire that gutted our home, and we had to move out. We were out for 8 months, and while they rebuilt it, and there were definitely lessons that I knew that there were lessons that I needed to learn, like right in that first 24, 48 hours, things that I was processing. But there's also been lessons with the benefit of time. The further you get away from that event, they say, looking back, like I think there's more lessons that I've learned. And I think as time goes on, as I keep looking back, I think I will continue to learn new lessons about that same event. So the question is, what did I learn? There's value in pulling lessons out of those things, because as they say, experience is not the best teacher. Evaluated experience. Just because you went through something doesn't mean that you're going to learn. You have to go back and intentionally ask, all right, what is the lesson? What are the things that I need to pull? What's the gold that I need to pull out of this mine? And you sift through the dirt, you sift through the rocks, you sift through the rubble. You say, all right, here's the thing that is of value to me. That's the question of, what did I learn? And there's a different perspective that we get of those wins and those losses over time. That's why you got to have that chance to pull back. And there are different lessons that you learn over a span of time. It's what you learn, but then sometimes it's what you relearn over and over again, that you kind of process it again over time. So that's the second question. Okay, are you with me still? Here we go. We're still looking back. Number three. The third question is this: who did I influence? Who did I lead? Now, I said, who do I influence? Because every time I talk about leadership, there's always people that just check out. They just kind of blank out because they don't have a title. They're not running a team. They're not running an organization. So they don't have a title as a leader. So if that's you, don't discount this just because you don't have a title. because leadership really is just influence. So the question maybe is just, who did I influence? Who did I add value to this last year? That may be another way to ask it, because it begins by asking the question, did I influence myself well? Did I lead or influence my family well? Did I lead or influence my team well? That's the question of what this is all about. Brian Tracy said, "Become the kind of leader that people would follow voluntarily, even if you had no title, even if you had no position." I love that. Be that kind of person that say that others look at you and they say, I want to emulate that. I want to be like that. I want to go where they're going. I want to follow where they're going. I'm influenced. I'm impacted by that person. So this is a lot. This is all about influencing other people, providing other people opportunities to growth, opportunities for them to be influential, leading others by example. So here's the question: who did you invest in this last year? What kind of relationships did you nurture? Did you feed? Did you water? Did you care for? Did you protect? Did you help to flourish? Who are those people that you equipped? Or here's the question: did you just maybe accumulate power? Did you just kind of hoard it all to yourself, hoard your influence and just kind of keep it to yourself? Or did you give it away? Did you encourage other people? Did you lift other people up? That's the question of this. If you want to grow in this area, here's a book recommendation for you. I read this book a couple years ago, and I've gone back to it many times, and I think it's a powerful book, and it comes from a context of ministry in the church, but don't let that scare you off if you're not a person of faith. It's not just about that. That's the framework for it, but you can learn lessons. Dave Ferguson wrote a book called Hero Maker. And I really encourage you to pick that up because I think that is a valuable tool that gives you 5 different practices that you can engage in if you need to get better at this. So when you ask the question, who did I influence? You say, I don't know that I really influenced anybody. Boy, I kind of just kept to myself this year. I don't know that I can tell you anybody that I added value to, that I invested in. Pick up Hero Maker and learn not to be the hero, but to be a hero maker. And it may start with identifying the kinds of people who are the kinds of people that you want to impact. I know for me, I want to impact people that are teachable, people that are hungry, people that are growth conscious. They kind of have that mindset. I want to invest in people who are emotionally intelligent, that save the drama for their mama, and they just want to kind of roll up their sleeves and like let's make a difference together. Those are the people I want to invest in. So that's the third question. All right, here's the last question, looking back. And here's what it is. What held me back this year? My friend Rich Lohman says all the time, he asks the question just that cuts right to the heart. When people start throwing out excuses, when they start talking about they didn't get the results that they wanted, he said, what is it that got in the way? What is it that slowed you down or all but stopped you from accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish? That's the question that you want to ask, and to dive right in. And chances are, in 2020, you didn't accomplish all the goals that you set out to do. And that happens almost every year, but maybe this last year it was especially difficult. This question enables you to reflect on the past. Like, what was the cause? And so here's my challenge to you. Again, I don't want to let you off too easy here. So don't just use COVID. Oh, because of COVID, I couldn't meet my goals. Okay, that may have impacted, and I'll give you a little bit of grace on that. COVID impacted some of my goals, but don't just hide behind that only. I want you to dive in a little bit deeper. Like, really, like, why did COVID have such an impact? If it really did get in the way or slow you down or all but stop you from accomplishing your goals, what was it? Why weren't you positioned enough? Why weren't you able enough? Why weren't you strong enough or rooted enough to be able to withstand that difficulty, that change up? That's the question. Do the work to do a deep dive. Why did COVID have that kind of impact in your life? These could be things that you did or didn't do. These are things that maybe it was limiting beliefs that you just didn't believe it yourself. your self-talk you talked yourself down, and you kind of convinced yourself that you couldn't do it. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was your habits. You had uphill dreams, but your habits were downhill. And so they didn't match up. They didn't get you where you wanted to go. This becomes an invaluable tool for you as you get ready to look forward, is to first figure out, okay, what went wrong? What was it that held me back? And again, there may be external reasons, and COVID certainly affected a lot, but don't overlook the possibility that there were some internal reasons as well, because we're all too quick to just push the blame and to point the finger at other people or other reasons. Well, that's the reason why. Well, that's the reason why. Well, that's the reason why. What are those things that were the limiting factors on your growth? Because you've got to identify them. What can hold us back sometimes is not being vulnerable. It's not being honest with ourselves. So this requires that hard look going on the inside. You've got to know yourself if you want to grow yourself. You've got to know what are those things that trip you up, that stump you, that get in your way, that slow you down, or all but stop you. Be aware of those obstacles, because you can't fix what you don't identify as an issue. Let me say that again. You can't fix what you don't identify as an issue. If you don't know what's holding you back, if you haven't asked this question, stop everything you're doing and dive into this. If you don't understand the things that got in your way, I want to challenge you to stop everything. Make this the top of your priority list in the next few days and dive into this. Ask the hard questions. I'm not asking you to give this to other people, so don't give the BS answer to everybody else that you give everybody else. I want you to look hard on the inside, and what is it that got in your way? Okay? All right. 4 questions looking back. Now, here's one question that's looking at right here, right now, today. This is the question that only you can answer. You can't look any place else. There's no other resource that I can help you with. This is a you and you deal. And so question number 5 is simply this. Do I still love what I do? There's a heart there, because this is a heart check question. This is a gut check question. That's why I say this is a you and you question. You can't look to anybody else. You can't blame it on anybody else. You got to ask the question, do I still love what I do? Do I still love the people that I do whatever I do with? Now, I'm kind of an odd duck in the sense that, maybe in many senses, but in one sense in particular, I love Mondays. I love Mondays. Now, a lot of people hate it. They dread it. Sunday night, they start breaking out in sweats and anxiety because they hate what they're going to have to get up and do the next day. I love Mondays because most people don't love what they do. They aren't in love with what they do for 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Now, something that we should be asking every year, if not more frequently than that, this is a question that we need to ask that frequently, at least every year, because we owe it to ourselves. And honestly, we owe it to the people that we are with. We owe it to our team. We owe it to the people that we're leading. We owe it to the people in our families to ask this question at least every year. Because if you stop loving what you do, or you stop loving the people that you do it with, you should be doing something. You should be doing something different. Now, let me just tell you this. A few years ago, I was hanging out with a group of pastors, and we were smoking cigars, as many pastors do. And they don't tell you about it, but they do. And there was a group of us sitting around talking, and I'll never forget the conversation with one of these pastors. And he talked about how he couldn't stop doing what he was doing because of money, because of retirement, because of timing of things. And so he was just like counting down the days. And you could just tell he was just saying this from, I just got to make it one more. This is a guy that did not love Mondays. And it was one of the saddest things that I heard. I was sad for him. I was sad for his people. His heart was obviously not in it. In fact, he kind of resented even. You could just hear it in his voice. He resented the people that he had to go and lead and serve. And I thought, how miserable he must be but how much more miserable must his congregation be, the people around him? Now, I've experienced pastors like that. I've experienced teachers like that that are well past their expiration date and they should have retired a long time ago, but they're putting it in because they want to get to a certain point. People that hang on and they just don't love what they do. Hear me out. It is impossible to add value to people that you don't truly value. And when you don't love what you do, or you don't love the people that you do it with, you can't add value to those people. Now, on the flip side of that, here's what I want you to grab onto. This is why it's so important. There is nothing more rewarding, there's nothing more fulfilling than adding value to people and other people that we love, doing what we love. It doesn't mean that there aren't some things. I'm not saying this is all rainbows and unicorns and just happy, happy, happy dance that you never have to do anything that you don't love to do. There are things that we have to do that we're required to do. But I'm talking about looking for those things that not only give you the greatest return, but also the things that give you the greatest reward. And the ultimate goal in life is, I don't know how to get three strands. To get those three strands, what is required, what gives you a great return, and what gives you the great reward. To get those three things to come together. Now that's a grand slam. When you can get all those things to come together, that's ultimately what you want to do. But here's the question: is there a purpose? Is there a cause? Is there a calling to what you're doing? Do you still love what you're doing? Because passion correlates with effectiveness. Now, the joke among pastors is that every Monday morning, most pastors they're ready to resign. They just, after Sunday, they're just kind of beat, they're spent. But the truth of the matter is that many of them probably should. They probably should just resign. They should just walk away and then decide if they want to reapply for the next week and jump in fresh and go after it, with their sleeves rolled up, like this is their first day on the job. But even if you're not doing that every week, I think you should re-up every year. I think you should review your purpose. I think you should review your calling. I think you should revisit your why. Like, why am I doing this? Several years ago, I was heavily involved in a new exciting new project. I mean, it was something I'd looked forward to doing for a long time, and it just never took off. It just never got wings. And so I ended up having to pull back and take a step back from that. And I'll never forget, I went back to kind of the same old thing that I was doing before. And I'll never forget the conversation I had with a close friend. And I said, listen, if I'm doing what I'm doing right now, that same old, a year from now, you have to promise me, as my friend who loves me, has my best interest at heart, that you will drive me out to a field someplace, maybe say a little prayer, and then just shoot me in the head because I can't keep on this way. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the people. And I could tell that my passion had just been waning for doing that thing. And wouldn't you know it, and just within a few months, he obviously didn't put a bullet in my head because I'm still here, but I started a new project. I walked away from that and started a new thing. And all I'm saying is these past few years for me, the past couple of years, I've been more intentional about my why, about getting in touch with why I do, my purpose, my passion, my calling, more regularly, more consistently than I ever have in my life. I'm more intentional about it. I'm less patient with people or circumstances that want to pull me away from that or try to knock me off course. Like I just don't have, my tolerance level is like 0.0009, And so now I still have those moments where I, sometimes feel like, oh man, what am I doing? What am I doing? And we got to pay attention to that. We got to pay attention to that question and ask it annually, seasonally, quarterly, weekly, if not every day. Like, all right, why am I doing what I'm doing? You owe it to your people. You owe it to yourself. Your ability to be effective is directly correlated to your ability to be passionate about what you're doing. Okay, let's go on. Now we're going to turn and we're going to look forward. I'm going to give you 4 questions that that look to the future. Questions that I want to encourage you to dive into over the next few days. And here's the next one. Question number, what is it? Number 6. Am I willing to pay the price again this year? Am I willing to pay the price again? John Maxwell says everything worthwhile is uphill. And you know how you get uphill? You have to do it by design. You don't fall uphill. You don't stumble uphill. You don't get uphill by default, by accident. It's intentional. It's on purpose. It's by design. And so I think every year we need to sit down and we need to count the cost about what does it mean to go where I want to go, because it's going to take effort. I'm going to have to pay a cost. I'm going to have to pay a price to do what I want to do, to go where I want to go. There's a real price for growth. There's a real price for success. And not everybody is willing to pay it. They want to stay safe where they are. They want to hoard what they have. They want to protect what they have. They don't want to risk. They don't want to move forward. But the law of growth says, the law of trade-off says that you have to give up if you want to go up. So are you willing to pay the price? And it's kind of another gut check question. You have to choose to re-up every year. You have to choose this. Am I in again this year? That's worth doing for yourself. That's worth doing with your team, to look around and say, listen, are you in? Are you in for another year? Am I in? Am I willing to do whatever it takes, wherever it takes me for another year? You have to choose that. It's a question of being willing to pay the price willingly, with the confidence that it'll all be worth it. Because here's a news flash for you. This is just in. Growth is hard. Growth is hard. It's tough, and progress can be painful. Motion causes friction, and friction causes pain and anxiety sometimes, and it causes difficulty. That success that we enjoy, though, or even the success that we want, it comes at a price. So the willingness to be able to pay that price comes before comes from asking this question. Before you even start on that journey, you got to ask him, whatever it takes, this is where I want to go. And I know it's going to cost me. I may not even know the full cost, but I'm willing. I got my checkbook. I'm ready to go. I'll do whatever it takes because I want that. That's where I want to get to. That's the question of, am I willing to pay the price? Okay. Here's question number 7. What are my big 3? Or for those of you that can't settle on big 3, I give you a little grace. What are your big 4? What are your big 3 or 4 ideas, goals? See, a lot of times what happens is we look into the new year and we have these wide eyes. And it's just like going to the grocery store when you're hungry. And I want this, and you want that, and you want that, and you're looking at all these different things. You have to focus in and control that big appetite you have for 2021. And you say, all right, this is what I want to do. So you may have a lot of things that you want to do, but I'm asking you to focus in. This question asks you to dive into what are your top 3 or 4. I really wouldn't go much more than that. What are your top 3 or 4 goals for the new year? What are those things? Now you can have ancillary objectives. You can have subheadings under that, things that you want to accomplish on the way to those goals. But I really encourage you to hone in and focus in on the top 3 or 4 goals. What are those main things that are quantifiable, that are stretching, that are achievable for you? But before you begin this new year, what are those 3 or 4 things that you want to accomplish? Now, I told you about a webinar series that we've been doing, and we just did one on goals this last month. And if you're interested and you want to dive into that a little more in depth, just send me a message. Just put a link in or just put your name in the comments, or shoot me an email or a message or something, and I'll make sure that you get that link to goal setting. It's kind of a crash course on goal setting. But let me just summarize a little bit, just a couple things about this idea of honing in on your top 3 or 4. The first principle is you can't arrive to a destination that you haven't decided to go to. So if you don't know where you want to go, if you haven't honed in and said, these are the 3 or 4 things that I want, you're not going to get there because you haven't identified them. That's just a basic premise before you even start. And the value of identifying those 3 or 4 things is that we are easily distracted. You're going to get distracted over this next year. Something's going to come up. People are going to pull you in different directions. And so the more focused you are, the more productive you'll be in that. the more productive you'll be going forward. Too many people have too many priorities. They have too many things that they want to do. And so you end up not really doing anything because you're just easily stretched and easily moved in different directions. So the challenge is to identify your list of goals, of your intentions, of your targets. Identify your top 3 or 4. I wouldn't do much more than that, and write them out. 4 is good. 3 is probably better because you'll remember them. They'll be top of mind. You can't remember 7 things or 10 things or 12 things. You can't remember those all the time. But if you can remember those 3 or 4 things, you'll be more likely to accomplish them, okay? So what are your big 3 or 4? Here's the next question. Question number 8. What habit change will aid me the most going forward? Remember, we have uphill dreams, but oftentimes we have downhill habits. This is what we want, but this is how we act. This is what we're going for. This is what we dream about, but this is what we actually do. This is the action that we take. So what are those habits that you need to change that will get you on an upward trajectory? What's a habit? What is even one habit change that you can look into? You don't even have to look at big, grandiose objectives. It could just be a simple thing. Small steps create great change. So don't overload this. Don't think that it has to be bigger than some dramatic thing. It could be just as simple as, hey, how you spend the first hour in your morning. It could be as simple as taking some time to reflect and to write down every day. I don't know what it is for you. What is that habit that you need to change that will help you? Because our success is won or lost on our daily habits. It's what we do every day. It's the little things that we do with consistency over time. That's what gets us to where we want to go. So this is part of that reflective thing. What is one habit that you could change? Because here's what I know. If you don't change anything, nothing will change. Nothing will change. You won't get your goals and your aspirations, the things that you won't get there if you don't change anything. Because we are perfectly designed to get the results that we're getting right now. You are perfectly designed. All of the things in your life are designed to get you the results that you're getting right now. So if you don't like those results, then you need to change something about that design. I'm just asking you to hone in on one habit. What's a habit that you could change to get better results? Because the people that do get better results, it'll be because they've identified those habits, that habit or habits. They say, these are the things I'm going to change. That's what's going to get them to where they want to go. Okay? Here's the last word, the last question. And it has to do with a word. And here's what it is. What is my focus word? Now, let me tell you about this. I don't know if you've done this before. I have become a proponent of this. I've become an advocate for identifying every year a word for the year. What describes the highest and the best use of your time? What's that one word that will crystallize the results that you want to get? That will crystallize what you're going to, that will help to focus you, help you to stay on track this year. That's the idea of capturing all of that in a word. Anytime you have a new beginning, how would you encapsulate that word? Now, the past few years, I've had words like abundance, words like growing. It's 2 words, but growing forward, because that's what crystallized what I wanted. I wanted to grow forward 1 year. 1 year it was clarity, and I spent a whole year just really focusing on clarity and learning about what it takes to get clarity. 1 year was productivity. One year, my word was renew. It was about making things new. As we're ending 2020, and for what it has been, and looking into the new year, I've been feeling this word that just keeps coming back. And it's just odd how this is how it happens every year. I start really thinking about it in November and December, and I just process it and I chew things over, and I just kind of ask God, like, okay, what's that word? Like, what do I need to dive into? What do I need to learn about? And what do I need to apply? And the word that has come back to me over and over again, my word for 2021 is the word reset. Reset. And I've already started looking into that word, and and all the nuances of it. What does that mean to reset your mind and reset your life and reset your goals and reset your passion and reset your health? And there's so much dynamic to that. I'm, I'm looking forward to that as my word. But what is your word this year? What one word will move you, will drive you forward, that will help you create the much of the success that you want this next year? What word will describe your best self? What will describe the way you want to treat and interact with other people? What word will bring meaning in your life? Now, those are the kinds of questions to ask in getting at what your focus word is. And here's what I want you to hear me. Don't don't obsess over getting the right word. Like it's got to be the right word. Like the perfectionist side of you. Like it has to be. Listen, that's not the point. The main purpose of a word is not to paralyze us and try to come up with the perfect word. The main point is to help align ourselves with this thought and this idea and keep us moving in a direction all year long. Okay? So there they are. There they are. Those are the 9 words, nine questions. Looking back, looking in now, looking ahead. And I think if you'll dive into these things over the next few days, I think what you'll find is greater results this next year. But you're not going to get those results unless you plan. This doesn't happen by default. I congratulate you. I appreciate you taking time to listen to this and to join me on this. But I got to ask you one more question. What's your plan for growth? This may help identify where you need to grow and the things that you need to do to grow. But my question is, what's your plan for growth? What's your plan to invest in yourself in 2021? What's your plan to invest in the people around you in in taking action? What are you going to do not just in January, but all year long? See, a lot of people recognize and they have this desire that they want to grow and they want to get better, but they struggle with being intentional and they struggle with consistency. And those two things oftentimes are at the heart of what holds people back and slows them down and all but stops them from growing. That's why a couple years ago, um, we developed this program called Passport to Growth. And it's a program to travel alongside one another with people to say this isn't just about growth for a seminar or for a workshop or a quick webinar. This is growth for a year, like for every day, all the time, week after week, all year long. And and long after most people have forgotten their New Year's resolutions, what Passport to Growth has done is it's enabled people to stay on that growth journey, to keep moving on. When other people have already fallen off the way by the wayside, Passport to Growth has been all about encouraging people to get back on track and to stay on track. Long after most teams have lost their perspective on their growth goals that they talk about in the first quarter, Passport to Growth people are still engaged in July, in August, November, in December. So here's what I want to invite you to do. I just want to make an invitation to you real quickly to consider being a part of our community called Passport to Growth. You can have access to this program, and we just crossed over the 100 lesson mark just a couple weeks ago. And we've been at this consistently for a couple years now. And we've been seeing this grow, and we've been seeing people engage in this and seeing difference made in people's lives. And my challenge to you is that if you're not satisfied with the results that you're getting in your own life right now, just remember that you are perfectly designed to get the results that you've got right now. So if you want new results, you have to have a new design and you have to have some new beginnings going into the new year. So you can go to passporttogrowth.com and find out the information there. You can reach out to me, ask questions. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I don't want to belabor the point, but I think if you don't have a plan for growth, then why not consider this? Try this in 2021 and join us on this journey, because that's what wakes me up every day, is to help other people to fulfill the purpose and the passion that God has wired inside of all of you. And And if you're not in touch with that, boy, I would love to help you this next year. So my challenge to you, I just want to thank you for investing this time again and investing in yourself to join me here, to carve out a little bit of time to listen in. But I want to challenge you to continue to take action. You took action to listen to this, but take action now to go through those questions. Take action to continue to grow all year long as we move forward. And so let's do that journey together. I invite you to take that journey with me, and I'd love to be your tour guide on that growth journey together. So thank you again for joining me. I wish you the greatest new year of new growth in 2021. Thanks again.